Hi guys, James at Rampant Lion Reviews again for you today. For this one, we are going to do another out and about video for you. So today I am in Colt in New Jersey. Hopefully I've pronounced that correctly, but there's a good chance I haven't. But we're going to have a little look at this place behind me. This is Source Farmhouse Brewery. And basically this place is a little bit to the south of where my good friend Dave and his new wife Marielle live, and they're away to a dancing lesson, so they dropped me off here to film a little bit while they go and practice their dancing. But from what I've seen, these guys do some really interesting stuff, and there's quite a nice tap list on here tonight. So we'll do as we always do, we'll go in, we'll have a walk around, I'll show you the merchandise, the tap list, and we'll try some of the beers and see how we get on. If they've got some food, we might have a little look at that as well. But yeah, definitely cool to be filming stateside once again, and you will see a good few out and about videos filmed while I'm over here this time, because we're going to be close to some really quite well known and interesting breweries. So let's get started on this one. Source Farmhouse Brewery in Colt, New Jersey. Let's do this. So yeah guys, we've arrived here at sort of 6:30ish in the evening, and you can see it's really pretty. The light isn't working so well for the camera, I have to say, but yeah, that's just kind of how it goes sometimes. But you can see this is quite obviously an old farmhouse that's just been converted into a brewery. But they've got this lovely beer garden round the back, which you'll see in a minute. And actually just behind us there's a distillery there. But yeah, it's kind of cool when you walk up to this place. It seems to just be very, very kind of small scale actually, but they've got this lovely symbol there, the hop flower in the glass, which I think is really nice. And you can see the brewery's pretty much dead ahead of me here. Here you've got the entrance, which looks very nice. You've got the opening hours as well, closed on Tuesdays, but open for a good few hours every day actually. But yeah, when you come in, you're greeted by some cans that have just been delivered. But yeah, you can see they've got some of the tanks behind there. Everyone's saying hello, hello. But yeah, you can see it looks like an old kind of barn and things like this. Tap list over there. We'll go up the stairs and explore a little bit later on, but essentially when you walk through this place, you see, we'll look at the merch a little bit later. You've got the brewery just behind you over here, and yeah, the tap list, the bar's right here, and then you come out the back and you've got this lovely area as well. So yeah, sunflowers up the back. First beer review was filmed here, but yeah, I have to say it's really nice. We might need to go up here and film a little bit as well, but there's more around there. But I have to say, really nice atmosphere here. Yeah, I've enjoyed it here. So you're going to see the first beer review filmed here in just a second, so let's have a look. Alright guys, so this is the tap list that's on today at Source Farmhouse Brewery. So yeah, I'll just take you through these. So they have the Crispy Crusher, a German Kolsch, the Undergringed King, which is a hoppy lager, Nano Nanette, or Nano Nanette, which is a Vienna style lager, the Reinheits, which is a German style Pilsner, the Farmfest Märzen, which could be quite interesting as well, Lemonade and Elderflower Shandy, Source of Wit, Yuzu de la Grange, which is a Brett Farmhouse Ale, that could be quite interesting to try, the Source of Funk, a fodder fermented golden sour, Big in Texas, the Austin style hazy IPA, not had one of those, I'll need to go down and visit my friends there and see what it's like. They've got some hard seltzers, the Tilted Kilt, which is supposed to be like a nitro 60 shilling, the Wagwan, a Nitro Tropical Stout Ale, could be quite interesting, the Tropical Stout with Blue Agave, Watts for Breakfast, which did sound kind of interesting I have to say, Summer Smoothie, some of these sours do sound very nice actually, 7.5%ers, the Summer Smoothie, the Berry Kiwi, the Watermelon Ice, does sound kind of interesting, Flower Child Milkshake IPA, Ambrosia Milkshake IPA, Blueberry Milkshake IPA, Tropical Milkshake, All I Need, What's Your Sign Gemini, that could be quite interesting. They have got a series of these actually with all the different sort of star signs, the Cancer, the Leo, don't see a Sagittarius though, which I think is mine. And then yeah, Dadip, Imperial IPA and the Go 50, it's your birthday. So a good selection of stuff on here, quite a few sours, quite a few lagers and a few New England hazies and 1 or 2 stouts. And yeah, interesting to see a Scotch ale on here. But yeah, that is your tap list here at Source Farmhouse Brewery. Good variety of stuff here for sure. Alright guys, well, time for our first tasting then here at Source Farmhouse Brewery. So what I often do in these videos is that I like to start with a nice German lager, or any kind of lager, because it's a good place to begin. And there was quite a few opportunities to do that here, so that's exactly what we're going to do. So yeah, this first beer that we're going to have a look at comes in this one. I'm not sure exactly how many kind of fluid ounces and stuff this is, but it comes in a glass that's just over half a litre. I can see that marked here, which is nice. But yeah, this one is called the Reinheitsgebirge Pilsner. It comes in at 5.4% ABV, and yeah, it looks absolutely great. You've got a lovely finger of a frothy, I would say, perfect white head there. Lovely foam, you can see that. It's kind of medium-sized bubbles on the liquid, smaller ones going further up. And you can see that it's got that lovely pale golden straw colour. Not much in the way of visible carbonation, but still, it looks very, very nice. Yeah, let's have a wee look at the nose on this one then and see how we go. Appearance-wise, it's pretty much everything you would expect from the style. And of course, remember, the Pilsner is originally a Czech style. The Pilsen, from the city of Pilsen in Bohemia in the Czech Republic. But it was actually developed by a Bavarian brewer. And the German Pilsners these days for me are a bit more dry and crisp. The Czech ones are a bit like smoother and creamier. So I'm curious to see whether this one is kind of true to that little subtle difference. But yeah, let's have a wee look at this and see what we have. So aroma-wise, it does actually smell very authentic. And what I've had before from American brewed lagers is that quite often they have the right flavour profile. They sort of taste similar, but you get little subtle differences because of the water, and sometimes they use a bit of American malt and things like that. Just from the aroma, this one does actually smell as if it uses German hops and German malt. So I'd be quite curious to see the brew sheet for this one and see if that's right, but that's just my intuition. But yeah, as you'd expect, you've got a lovely little bit of fresh white bready bread crust, kind of fluffy white bread. You do get that little bit of crisp, dry Pilsner malt in the top of the nose. And then yeah, so you've got that, yeah, bread crust, kind of fluffy white bread, a little bit of the crisp Pilsner malt in the top of the nose. You do get a little bit of biscuit out of this one, like a McVitie's digestive biscuity sort of thing. So yeah, there's a wee bit of that going on, lovely kind of McVitie's digestive biscuit. And then you've got a wee bit of like a kind of crackery, woody sort of thing to this one as well, probably from the yeast. And you find that quite often in a number of the kind of Brauhaus Pilsners. They will have a little bit of a woody, yeasty sort of thing coming out of them. But yeah, this is really nice actually. Aroma-wise, it's pretty much as you'd expect. A little bit of herbal character in there, a little bit of earthiness, which you would expect from like Hallertau or Tettnang hops. But yeah, you've got a nice little bit of brighter floral aromaticity, good little bit of lighter grassiness as well. And in terms of fruitiness and things, you have what you'd expect, like a little touch of... you've got a little touch of like gooseberry, oily pear, fresh green apple, these sorts of things. So yeah, aroma-wise, this is very authentic with what you would expect from the German Pilsner. And it feels quite light and crisp in its aroma, which is what you'd expect from a German as opposed to a Czech Pilsner. But yeah, let's have a taste of this one then and see how we go. Aroma is what I would expect as well. And what I want from these beers is authenticity. I want closeness to what you'd find over in Central Europe. So let's get stuck into this one. The Reinheitsgebirge, a 5.4% German-style Pilsner from here at Source Farmhouse Brewery in New Jersey. Slange, skål! Oh yeah, that's pretty nice. That is pretty nice. What I'd say about this one is, it's quite, it actually has quite a little bit of sweetness in the aftertaste. It's one of the sweeter pills that I've come across for sure. So it's, as I say, it's not quite as dry and crisp as some of the German ones. It is a little bit lighter and wetter, and I mean, in a way you can kind of understand that when you think about the American weather. It's, you know, it's quite hot and humid and stuff here. I've actually got a really nice evening though when I'm here. I'm here I think about 6:30 or so in the evening. You can see lovely nice skies. But yeah, it is a wetter and sweeter Pilsner, this one. And it's not quite as bitter. I don't think this beer has too much in the way of IBU. Normally you'd expect about 30-ish IBUs. from the Czech or German Pilsners. It feels like it's a little bit less than that, but still flavour profile is very nice. I mean, this one for me, it has a little bit of the Pilsner dryness into the aftertaste. You can tell there's Pilsner malt in there, but just not quite as bitter, I would say, but still a very nice beer. Yeah, let's try and break this down then and describe it for you a bit more in depth. So, backbone of the beer then, middle third of your palate. As you'd expect, you've got a little bit of a fresh white bready bread crust in there. You get a bit more dryness out of that into the aftertaste. Further forward, there's a little bit of woodiness on that middle third of your palate too. There's a little bit of an almost kind of wholemeal brown bready character sitting on top of that. Then you get the fluffy white bread. Further back from that, on the back of that middle third of your palate, you get a little bit more of, you do get a little bit of a kind of more crisp, dry Pilsner malty character out of this one. So, yeah, the way that this one goes together is quite nice in that sense. So yeah, lovely little bit of crisp, dry Pilsner malt there. It gets drier and drier the more that you drink of the beer. I think this beer is maybe going to do that. It's going to get a little bit drier in a sense the further on you go. But on top of all the bready character in that middle third of your palate, you get a little bit of sweet biscuity note to it. Like, I don't know what a good reference is for Americans. It's a little bit like McVitie's digestive biscuit for me. It's really like that. The Americans, of course, would call those sorts of things cookies, but yeah, there we go. On the back third of the palate then, you get similar flavours, just the bread crust is a little bit drier, the brown bready layer is a little bit taller and more airy, the white bready layer is the same. Then you get some of the yeasty character out of the beer, and the yeast for me is interesting. It's like a more dense white bread, a little bit crackery, a little bit woody. Yeah, a little bit more dense, a little bit more woody, and yeah, you do get more of the yeastiness and more of the graininess out of this beer the further into the aftertaste you go, but you get more of the Pilsner malt and the kind of sweetness from that as well. I think the Pilsner malt that's been used in this one is more American. I don't think it's German, actually. It smells very similar, but still, I think it's got American malt in it, this beer. But yeah, on the hoppy side of things then, back corners of the palate, you do have a little bit of an earthiness there. As you move further forward, you get a wee touch of herbal character. Front corners of your palate, there's a little bit of a kind of floral aromatic sort of thing. And then round the front curve of the tongue, you have a little bit of a lighter, more, you've got a little bit of a lighter, more grassy sort of thing. But the green component in this beer is actually quite wet, I have to say. Yeah, this is quite nice. On the front third of your palate, you've got a good little bit of the fruity character there. So you've got a bit of bread crust and stuff underneath, then you get that nice oily bubble where the juicy fruity esters roll their way out of the beer, and it is kind of what you'd expect from the aroma for sure. So yeah, at the back of that front third of your palate, you get a little bit of a, you do get a nice little bit of a kind of like oily pear sort of thing. Or a bit, no, more like a sultana, you know, a dry white green grapey note, like raisins, but white raisins. It's kind of like that. The back of that front third of your palate is like that. As you move further forward, it gets a little bit more oily and sort of peary. And then you get a wee bit more of, yeah, you do get a little bit more of a kind of oily pear in the middle. And then as you move into the front half of that front third of your palate, it gives you a little bit of like gooseberry underneath, especially into the aftertaste. And then it's got a bit of like fresh green apple sitting on top of that. That's at least what I'm getting. But the fruity side of the beer is quite nice and wet. And I think on that note we can move on to the aftertaste, to the mouthfeel rather. So for me, like I said, this beer, it's quite wet. It's got a little bit of oiliness to it. You can definitely, for me at least, having been quite familiar with the German beers, having lived there, you know, the water profile is obviously quite different to this one. And that makes a difference to the mouthfeel of the beer. So this one feels a bit more wet and oily in a sense. But the way that it goes together in that respect, I think, is really quite nice. So yeah, I'd describe it as being top end of light bodied for me. smooth carbonation, a little bit wet, a little bit more oily. IBU wise, I think this one's about 20, maybe 25 at the most. The malty base, as we said, a little bit of dryness underneath, smoothness in the middle, and a little bit of a sweet character on top, and it gets sweeter the further into the aftertaste that you go. Then you also have that really nice, kind of oily, fruity note coming out of the beer too. So yeah, this is a nice Pilsner, as I say. It's not quite as dry and crisp as I would expect from a German Pilsner. It's a little bit more wet and oily, but that's maybe down to the type of malt and the water profile here. So yeah, it's still nice, and it gives you the flavour profile you'd expect, just the flavours come out in a slightly different way. But yeah, I like this. So yeah, that was the Reinheit's Pils, 5.4% ABV if I remember correctly, and that's our first beer. We'll go back and we'll see what else they have in just a second, so catch you in a second, catch you there. So yeah guys, just a little perspective of where I've been sitting after we've done that first review. This is the little garden out the back, which is really nice. There you can see the back of the farmhouse there with me. And yeah, if you go all the way around, you can see this beer garden is really very nice. You can see there's some nice labradoodles over there, but then you've got this field of sunflowers just ahead. It's really quite a nice place to sit and chill under this little tarp thing. So yeah, let's go on and have a little look at our second beer then. Alright guys, so second beer tasting then here. So this one is called Source of Funk. It comes in at 6% ABV, and it's a golden fodder aged sour ale, this one, so it should be really quite interesting. So yeah, as you can see, this one's poured a lovely kind of bright mango juice yellow colour. There's not much in the way of like visible carbonation with it, and that's quite common with sort of sour beers like this. But yeah, it looks great. When it poured, it had about a half finger of a frothy, I would have said cream coloured head, but that's obviously faded away now. You know, sour beers don't tend to hold their head all that well in my experience. So let's have a wee look at the aroma of this one and just see what it's all about. So yeah, that's really very, very nice. You've got a lovely sort of, I would say, you've got a lovely bit of that kind of smooth American oak underneath. I mean, American oak is a different species of tree from European oak. It just gives you this lovely smooth aroma and flavour and a little bit of vanilla type character underneath it. There's a little bit of McVitie's digestive kind of character to it as well. You're getting a little bit of like butterscotch too, but a wee bit of kind of, yeah, aroma wise you've got a little bit of, on top of the wood, you have a little bit of kind of brown bread crust, wee bit of sort of wholemeal brown bread as well, a little bit of white bread, but then yeah, a little bit of kind of butter candy, butterscotch, and then McVitie's digestive biscuit in there. But the more that you smell this one, you get that kind of dry, woody sort of, you get that kind of dry, woody funkiness coming out of the beer, and you get a bit of cracker and all this sort of thing to it. I find the aroma of these beers is often very kind of straightforward, but the way it goes together is just is really quite nice. In terms of the hoppy side of this beer, this one for me, you can still smell some hoppy character to this one. There's a bit of earthiness, a little bit of herbal character, a little bit of a floral kind of thing, and a wee bit of grassiness as well. And yeah, that all goes together really quite nicely actually. So the thing with sour beers like this is you have to think about how you want to hop them. It's always interesting to ask sour beer brewers what their hopping mentality is. So you can add older hops into these beers, and that won't detract too much from the sourness of the beer, because the beers have lost a little bit of their alpha acid potency, or the hops rather have lost a bit of their alpha acid potency. But if you add fresh hops into a beer, it just takes away, it detracts a little bit from the sourness of the beer. So yeah, that's always an interesting perspective with these beers. Oh, I've got a little bug in this one, we'll get rid of that. So yeah, but yeah, that's always an interesting point with this one. On the fruity side of things, you get what you'd expect with this one. There's a little bit of like oily pear, there's a little bit of sultana, you know, dry white green grapes, fresh kind of green apple as well, and a little bit of a lemony limey citrus. So yeah, the way that this one goes together, I think, is really nice. Someone's not having a good time over there, so a little kid screaming behind me, why not? But yeah, aroma wise, this This is lovely actually. I'm very, very curious just to try this one. As I say, sour beers for me are often quite simple in terms of their aroma and flavour profile, but if they're done well, they're just really nice to drink. The sort of sour funky thing you get from these is great. So yeah, let's have a little look at this one then. I've given you the aroma. Let's have a wee taste of this. This is the Source of Funk, a 6% golden fodder aged sour ale from here at Source Farmhouse Brewery. Slàinte, skål, cheers. Starting to get the little flies around me now. Probably know in my luck it'll be mosquitoes because they love my blood, especially the American ones. Yeah. So, yeah, the impact of this beer is really nice. It's got a lovely big, really sharp sour character to it. But that mellows out, and obviously that's one of the things that you look for in sour beers, is that you look for them just to mellow out nicely and give you a really nice, just kind of slightly sour character. So yeah, the way that beer goes together is really nice. So let's just try and describe that a little bit more sort of in depth for you.
I was going to get that until she told me about this. I like that's in the wine glass though.
So yeah, this is lovely. Middle third of your palate then. You've got this lovely, very smooth, oaky backbone, which is what you expect from a fodder ale. But yeah, the way that this goes together is really nice. So lovely smooth American oak in there, a little bit of vanilla toward the front of that middle third of your palate. Wee bit of a wholemeal brown bready character in there, which is great. Then, you know, you've got the bread crust first, then you've got a more dense wholemeal brown bread, a white bread above that. The bready character is really nice and smooth, and then above all of that, you get a little circle there in the middle of your palate. So it's got this lovely kind of Werther's Original butter candy, butterscotchy type character to it, which I think is really quite nice actually. You do get a little bit of sweetness out of this beer the further into the aftertaste that you go, but yeah, the way that it goes together I think is really nice in that middle third of your palate. It sweetens up a hell of a lot actually. So yeah, I like that about this one. Really nice on the middle third of your palate there, and as I say, sweetens up. So back third of your palate is quite similar. The woody character's a little bit drier, the brown bready character's a little bit light and more airy, the white bready character's a little bit lighter and more airy, and then you've got the nice yeasty notes on top of that. So the yeasty character for me is a little bit more the yeasty character for me is a little bit more kind of like a dense brown bread, a little bit of a kind of farmhousey, crackery sort of thing to it, and a little bit peppery almost as well. You do get that, but definitely flavour on the back third of your palate is taller. Then as you come further forward into the middle third of your tongue, it kind of condenses down and squashes together a little bit. But yeah, really nice. I think that covers the woody and yeasty side of the beer.
Does anybody want a big dish for the salad? What is that?
But yeah, on the hoppy side of things then, this beer definitely has hops in it. You can kind of tell that. You can tell it's older hops that have been used in this too. Not too high alpha acid. But yeah, in the back corners of the palate there's a little bit of a kind of earthiness in there. As you move further forward, it's got a little bit more of a kind of herbal, earthy sort of thing. And then yeah, as you move further forward from that, little bit of floral aromaticity, a little bit of nice grassiness around the kind of front curve of the tongue, and yeah, that's quite nice. The hoppy character in this is good. Let's move to the front third of your palate then and have a little look at the kind of fruity part of the beer.
Oh, that's Norman's? I couldn't figure it out, like I'm at Norman's.
So yeah, fruity side of the beer is interesting. Front third of your palate, you get lovely smooth American oak, lovely little bit of woodiness underneath, lovely little bit of woodiness and smooth white bread. Then on top of that you get the sour impact, so it's a really citricy impact on this. When it comes in, it just rolls out and goes further back on the palate, and yeah, lemony, citricy, kind of limey as well, but you've got a really nice kind of behind that you've got a lovely big oily pear, bit of gooseberry, and a bit of fresh green apple as well actually on that front third of your palate. Some really nice, lovely oily fruity character. This is a really nice beer, this one. I do like how this goes together. But to be honest,
we went,
I think that's everything we need to say about this beer in terms of its flavour profile, to be honest. Yeah, mouthfeel wise, so I've got a little bug in it again. There we go. Little fly flying into my sour beer. Probably just because of the time of night. But yeah, in terms of mouthfeel, this beer for me is kind of it's kind of mid-bodied in terms of the style. I think this one's actually quite heavy in terms of its body for the style, which is quite nice. So top end and mid-bodied, smooth carbonation, a little bit oily and slick. Yeah, so a little bit oily and slick. And then yeah, a little bit oily and slick. And then you have a nice little bit of, there's a little touch of bitterness, this one, maybe 10 or 15 IBUs. And then, yeah, I'd say a little bit of sweet maltiness underneath. A little bit of bready character as well, obviously. So you've got, in the malt base, you've got the smooth wood, the smooth bread, then another bit of sweetness on top, quite a layered malt base. Then you've just got a nice little bit of oily fruitiness, and the sour character, as I say, it's got a wee bit of an impact to it, but it mellows out really nicely. And it just gives you that little bit of kind of sour funk the further into the aftertaste that you go. But yeah, I think we can leave it at that for this one. This one was the Source of Funk 6% golden fodder aged ale. This one, really nice. And as I say, cool to try a farmhouse beer at Farmhouse Brewery. So let's leave it at that for this one, and we'll crack on to beer number 3 in just a little second. So yeah guys, if you come up the stairs you can actually get a nice little view over the brew kit and things there. You can see they've got a 3 vessel brew house over there. So there you can see the one with the grain mill that feeds it into the mash tun and so on. Then you've got these other 2 tanks here. Obviously this is the one that's used for the hoppings and things like that on well, closest to me. But yeah, good few fermentation vessels there. They look as if they're maybe about 2,000 litres or something like that. But yeah, just behind them, just like over here, they have a few lagering tanks and things as well. And you can see 2 more lagering tanks just down here. So this is where they'll be putting their Märzens and Pilsners and stuff like that. So it seems like they've got quite a nice little setup here actually. Yeah, quite impressive little brewery. I don't know how many litres they'll produce a year and so on, but they do seem to have a really nice little system going on here. So yeah, interesting. Let's get on to the next beer then, guys. Alright guys, well, time for tasting number 3 then here at Source Farmhouse Brewery. So this one that we're going to go for today, this is Da Dip, which was recommended to me by the guys downstairs. This is apparently one of the closest beers they have to a sort of more farmhousey leaning New England hazy IPA. So 8.4% ABV, Citra, Simcoe and Strata hops in this one, I believe. These are all hops we know quite well. All 3 of them are American. Citra's about 14% alpha acid, you know, big juicy mango, kind of lemon limey sort of character. Simcoe's about 12% alpha acid, big kind of soft passion fruity notes. And then Strata is about 16% alpha acid, and that gives you this really nice kind of strawberry type character from what I remember. So yeah, quite an interesting combination. But this was a recommendation from the guys on the bar. But yeah, you can see this beer poured exactly as you would expect of the style. Lovely kind of mango juice, hazy yellow colour, about a half finger of a frothy white head. Opaqueness on this one is pretty impressive. I mean, it is 8.4% ABV. Remember, the colour of your beer depends on a few things. One, the type of malts that you use. This goes a long way to determining EBC rating. 2, length of your wort boil is going to play a role. The longer you boil the wort, the more the sugars caramelise, and thus you get a darker colour of beer. Barrel aging and adjuncts can play a role as well, but when it comes to New England IPAs, you don't often have to care about those 2 variables. Level of haze, though, that depends on oak content, wheat content, and to a degree what yeast you use. That can vary from brewery to brewery, beer to beer. It's just kind of luck of the draw, but this one is pretty damn opaque. Yeah, not too much in the way of visible carbonation. Appearance-wise, this beer is not really a surprise when you consider what style it is. It's what you'd expect. So let's have a wee look at the aroma then and see what we get from this one. Yeah, aroma-wise, this is lovely. For me, it's quite an oaty leaning New England. Yeah, it's You get a lot of kind of smooth oaty character at this one. Remember, oats are always a good indicator of how old your New England IPA is. Essentially the creamier they smell and taste, the fresher the beer is, the drier they are, the older it is. But yeah, this to me smells as if it's quite oaty leaning. Your New England IPAs can have 6 elements to them: wheaty bitiness, oaty creaminess, barley malt bread, a little bit of sweetness, farmhousey yeasty character, and in America some of them can have a little bit of rye character as well. It's not so common in Europe to have the rye character, or the farmhousey for that side of things for that matter. So this is a more oaty leaning New England IPA. In the back of the nose though, you do get a little touch of wheat. You can smell that wheaty bitiness. Good little bit of barley malt, soft white bread as well. So you've got fresh white bready bread crust, soft white bread. As I say, a lot of kind of oaty creaminess. It's 8.4%, so there is a little bit of a... there's a lot of oaty creaminess to this one. There is a little bit of, as I say, there's a little touch of sweetness to this one. A little bit of like McVitie's digestive biscuit and cracker and stuff like that. So it's got a wee touch of sweetness. But then, yeah, the hoppy side of things on this one is lovely. The green component is quite bright, I would say, and that's usually an indicator of late addition and dry hopping. Remember, you can use 3 types of hoppings with your IPAs. Early addition hopping within the first hour of the wort boil, that gives you mainly bitterness and a deep dank aroma. Late addition hopping within the last half hour will give you quite a bright floral and aromatic type thing, and that gives you a little bit of bitterness but mainly flavour and aroma. Dry hopping, which takes place after the wort boil is complete, that is all about the flavour and aroma, and again that usually translates to quite a light and bright green component. So New England IPAs rely on late addition and dry hopping. West Coast IPAs use all 3, hence why they're more bitter and deep and dank. But for me, quite a wet, leafy grassiness in there, nice little bit of floral character, and the fruits in this one are quite tropical leaning. You get a lot of the kind of mango from the Citra. There's a kind of soft passion fruit in there as well from the Simcoe. And this is using Incognito as well, which is like a hop extraction method that it basically takes out all the lupulin oils and all the good part of the hop. So you've got this really concentrated and very smooth and wet green component in this one. On top of that, you can get a little bit of this gooseberry type note, and you also get quite a bit of juicy strawberry. That's the strata. That's absolutely the strata that's giving you that. And depending what you mix strata with, it gives you a little bit of gooseberry, but normally strata is all about the strawberry. So you've got this really soft, juicy strawberry with a bit of bright mango and soft passion fruit behind it. Quite straight shooting in that sense. And I think we've said everything we need to about the aroma of this one. So let's get stuck into this and see what it's all about. So this was the DA Dip, 8.4% if I remember rightly, New England Hazy Imperial Double, whatever you want to call it, IPA. Let's do this. Slanja, skål. That's pretty damn solid. I mean, this is one of these beers where the flavour plays out exactly as you'd expect based on the aroma. Really creamy, very smooth New England IPA, this one. You really kind of... it's exactly as you'd expect from the aroma. Some beers can deviate a little bit, some flavours are a bit more pronounced and so on, but that's pretty much bang on for what I would think from the aroma. Big, creamy, smooth, juicy sort of thing. Very, very easy to drink, hides its alcohol well. That's that. So, yeah, let's have a wee take. Let's break this one down and describe it more in depth. So, backbone of the beer, you've got this lovely little bit of fresh white bready bread crust, a wee bit of a wee bit of a Jacob's cream cracker sort of thing in there. On top of that, soft white bread. You get a bit of a denser wheaty white bread on top of that. A little bit of a kind of, as I say, you've got a little bit of a kind of sweetness on top of that. You get a little circle in the middle of your palate, which has a wee bit of biscuit, and also a little bit of a little bit of a biscuit, and also a wee bit more of a kind of a little bit more of a kind of. There's a little touch of like Wardo's original butter candy butterscotch in the middle of your palate, but not too much. This is more oaty and bready leaning. this New England IPA. Back third of your palate is very similar. You've got a little bit more dry bread crusty character in there. The white bready layer is a bit taller and more airy. You can feel a bit of the wheat just kind of cracking on top of that. And then you also have a really nice kind of, you get a little bit of the yeasty character out of this one. So a dense white bread, a little bit crackery and so on. It's really nice. Yeah, malt base on this beer really is spot on. That's a lovely New England IPA, I have to say. So I might need to get a can of this to take away, or a can of one of the IPAs to sit down and review later. But yeah, the malt base on this one is really, really nicely done. On the hoppy side of things then, it's as you'd expect. Back corners of the palate, there's a teeny little bit of earthiness, a little bit of herbal character, but very quickly, as you move further forward along the sides of your palate, you get this nice big oily floral aromaticity and a bit of soft grassiness around the front ring of the tongue, but the green component is quite wet, I would say. It's really nice. So yeah, the way that goes together, I think, is really nice, and it gets a big thumbs up from me. Yeah, really good stuff actually, so I do like that. On the fruity side of things then, the front third of your palate, the base of that front third of your palate, you've got a lovely little bit of soft white bready bread crust in there. On top of that, a little bit of wholemeal brown bread, dense white bread, and then you get that nice oily bubble where the juicy fruity esters just roll their way out of the beer. So yeah, for me, the fruity side of things, it's really nice in that sense too, because yeah, it's got a lovely, it has a little bit of a stronger tropical note at the back of the front third of your palate. Like, you get a little bit of that stronger passion fruit, a little bit of a sharper peach as well. These will be coming from the Citra, but as you move further forward, you get the softer passion fruit and the juicy mango. The softer passion fruit will be coming from the Simcoe, the juicier mango will be coming from the Citra. Then as you move into that front half of the front third of your palate, it's all about the, it's really all about the kind of, the soft strawberry character. That's really nice. Yeah, the strawberry notes that you get out of this are really good actually. Yeah, strawberry side of things in this one is really, really nice. Yeah, lovely, just soft, juicy strawberry. The further into the aftertaste you go, it feels like there's a little bit of gooseberry underneath it, and I've always found that with Strata. Juicy strawberry, but a little bit of an oily kind of gooseberry type note underneath. So yeah, that gets a thumbs up from me. I like that about this one. Yeah, interesting stuff. I think that's everything we need to say about the flavour profile of this one. So let's go on to the let's go on to the mouthfeel to round off this one. So yeah, for me, the mouthfeel pushing toward the top end of mid-bodied, smooth carbonation, lovely big kind of creamy mouthfeel. And overall, I would say it's lovely big kind of smooth kind of creamy mouthfeel. And in terms of IBUs, I think this is a fairly standard sort of 25-30 IBU beer. Not too much bitterness, and again the Incognito kind of takes the bitterness down, so you get the big floral flavours but not so much bitterness. The malt base, as I said, a bit dry underneath, a bit smooth in the middle, a little touch sweeter on top. Then you've got the nice big juicy fruity sort of thing to it, which I think is nice. Yeah, it's good stuff. But yeah, that's a really nice New England double, I have to say. So big thank you to the guys on the bar for pointing this one out to me. This was a good choice actually. So lovely big kind of creamy, smooth, juicy New England IPA that. So let's leave it there. That's the end of tasting number 3. we are going to do something slightly more malty for our last one, and this is a style that I do enjoy, but you don't see all that often. So yeah, let's leave it at that. Catch you guys in a second with our fourth and final tasting then here at Source Farmhouse Brewery. Catch you in a second. So yeah guys, they've got a bunch of like merchandise here, which is kind of cool. You can see you've got all your baseball caps because, you know, it's America. But yeah, you can get your beanie hats as well, which actually look as if they're really nicely done, I have to say. You can get your little baby grows toddler t-shirts, and yeah, you can get the blankets too with the symbol. Quite a few different varieties of glassware for all your different beer styles. But yeah, down here they've got different t-shirts and things which are pretty cool. The hoodies as well, the hoodies are quite nice. There you can see the back, drinks from Source. Then the badge there too. Few different colours on that hoodie. But yeah, you can get your tank tops if you want. I think these are the girlies. Then you get a nice little camouflage crop top if that's your thing. I think I'm a bit too chunky for that, right enough. But yeah, that's a little look at the merchandise for you. The shirts, $25 to $28. The beanies are $20. The hats are $25. But yeah, nice little selection of merchandise here at Source Brewing. So yeah, another little thing. Alright guys, well, time for our fourth and final tasting then here at Source Farmhouse Brewery. So I've gone for a style for the last one that's a little bit more malty. I always feel that's a good way to go. You start light and then you can go to a little bit sour, and then you just work your way to more and more malty as you go. But this beer is a style that you don't see all that often, but it's one that I really enjoy. So this particular beer is called Nano Nanette. Not sure if I've done my intonations right, but 3 beers in, I don't care. It comes in at 5.4% ABV, and this is a Vienna lager. Now, as I mentioned in the Reinheit's tasting that we did a few minutes ago, the thing that's always interesting for me when we try the American versions of these styles is to see how close they are to the European ones, because obviously different malts and things like this, different water profiles, that's how it goes. And quite recently I was lucky enough to have one of my followers send me a bunch of Vienna brewed Vienna lagers, so I know this style quite well at this point in time. But yeah, you can see that this beer is poured exactly as you'd expect. You've got a lovely, very almost like copper, raw mahogany wood type colour to this one. When it came out, it had a half finger of a frothy, I would have said like slightly ivory, fawn coloured head. Not too much in the way of visible carbonation with this one, but that could well be down to the glass. If you put this in a tankard, you'll get a bit more carbonation out of it. But in terms of what I've seen from Vienna lagers before, this one is on the lighter end of the spectrum. This one's a little bit more, if I put my hand behind it, you can see it's got a little bit more of that lighter copper colour. Some of these beers can be a little bit more mahogany or chestnutty, and again that depends on the type of malts that you're using and your wort boil length and so on. But it's certainly not out of the question. It is a little bit more Märzen coloured than it is Vienna lager coloured. But yeah, looks nice. Let's see, let's have a wee look at the aroma of this one and see. That does smell really nice. One of the things that will surprise you about this style, if you haven't tried too many of them, when you actually have the Viennese brewed ones, they're a lot more grainy and bread crusty than you'd expect. A lot of people expect Vienna lagers to be very smooth and sweet. That's not how they are in Vienna. But this one, for me, has a good little bit of graininess in the malt base, so I'm quite hopeful with this. And what I found with the Reinheit's was that it got more and more authentic the further into the aftertaste that you went, and the more of it that you drank, of course. So that's, you know, kind of what they're aiming for, I guess. But yeah, the backbone of this beer, it has a really lovely kind of, it has a lovely, very smooth sort of dry bread crusty character to it. It's like a rye bread bread crust. You do get a sweeter rye bread in this one. There's a little bit of a woody, there's a little bit of a kind of woody note to it, a little touch of nuttiness. But then yeah, definitely some wholemeal brown bread as well. Good little bit of, there's a good little bit of, I would say, like, more of a wholemeal brown bread as well, but then above that you get a little bit of a kind of toasty brown sugar, a little bit of an oily and dry brown sugar as well. And then, yeah, this beer, the more that I smell of it, the more authentic it becomes. You get more and more of that kind of drier graininess that you would associate with the style. So the thing is, with Austria, these guys do have their own hops as well. In Austria, the hop producing region is called the Upperwurtal. And the Austrian hops are very similar to the German ones, but they're just a very slight touch more herbal. And you can kind of get a little bit of that in here. I'd be very curious as to what hops they've used in this one, because Austrian hops don't export that much. But you do have a little bit of earthiness in there, you've got a little bit of herbal character, and again you have this sort of wet, very slightly floral but more grassy leaning note out of it. But for me, on the fruity side of things, you've got a very light, dry figgy character to it. You've got a little bit of oily pear. Oily pear, sultana as well. Sultana, oily pear, a little bit of a light figgy character. But yeah, the way that all of that goes together, I think, is really quite nice. It does smell very authentic, and this beer's been sitting for a couple of minutes, so it has warmed up a wee bit, but the aroma is really authentic. This is a bit more authentic than the Reinheits was, I would say, in terms of aroma, so hopefully that translates into the flavour too. But yeah, let's get stuck into this. So this was the Nano Nanette, a 5.4% Vienna lager, our last beer here at Source Farmhouse Brewery. Sláinte, skål. Oh yeah, that's good. I would say it's slightly sweeter than the brewed Vienna lagers that I've had, but the dryness you can feel, it comes out more and more into the aftertaste. You can feel that it's a bit different because of the water. The water profile here is obviously different, so it feels a bit cleaner actually. This is the interesting thing, it feels a little bit more oily, but the flavour profile is really authentic, and you can't ask for much more than that, to be honest, in terms of replicating the flavours that you'll find in Vienna. So that's an absolutely solid Vienna lager actually, but just a little bit sweeter. But you quite often find this when the Americans get their hands on one of the old world beer styles, if we can call them that. They often are just that little bit sweeter. The American palate, I think, is a bit sweeter than the European palate for sure. But that is good. That's a solid Vienna lager. So yeah, let's break this down then. Middle third of your palate. Backbone of the beer, you've got this lovely little bit of really dry, rye bready bread crust. Further forward, you get a wee touch of woody character in there. The rye bread sits above that. Then you get the wholemeal brown bread. These are all things you expect of the style, of course. And you do get this very slightly nutty flavour coming out of it too. The brown sugars are quite interesting because they're quite dry. I don't know if toasted is the right word, but it feels a little bit dry. It's got a little touch of like caramelisation to it. And there's a bit of leatheriness in there, which makes me wonder about the wort boil time. Maybe it's had a very slightly longer wort boil to it. But yeah, this beer, it's interesting because it does get a little bit drier the further into the aftertaste that you go. So yeah, that's nice. The malt base on this one is authentic. You can tell that it's not, I think it's American produced Vienna malt that's in here, but it's very close to what you'd get from the actual Viennese stuff itself. Back third of your palate is quite similar, but the bread crust, the rye bread crust is a bit drier. The rye bready character is a bit lighter and more airy. The wholemeal brown bready character is a little bit lighter and more airy. Then you get all the yeasty notes out of this one. So the yeasty note in this beer is like a dense, sweet wholemeal brown bread. It's wrapped in a sort of honeycomb kind of thing, and you get this drier, crackery note that comes out of it. But definitely, back third of your palate, you can feel the flavour is taller. Then as you move further forward into the middle third of your palate, it just kind of, pardon me, condenses down and squashes together. So yeah, I like that about this one for sure. I think that covers the malty and yeasty side of the beer, so let's go to the hoppy and fruity side of things. Back corners of the palate, you do have that little bit of earthiness there. As you move further forward, it's a wee touch herbal, and as you move toward the front corners of your palate, it's more floral. Now the floral character in this one actually does have a wee bit of aromaticity to it, but it's still quite wet. and round the front curve of your palate, you've got a little bit more of a kind of wet, grassy sort of thing. I have to admit that I've found that with the beers here at Source, is that they're quite wet in their hoppy characters, and generally the mouthfeel is quite wet in these beers. But it works. So you've got this leaf. You do have this kind of leafy character to the green components in many of them. In the IPA, that was due to the incognito oil, but with the sour and the two lagers that we've had now, it is just quite wet and leafy. But let's look at that front third of your palate then, just to round off the tasting of this one. So, base of the front third of your palate. Yeah, there's a wee bit of bread crust in there, the rye bread, but it's a little bit sweeter. Above that you get the rye bready layer, but it's a little bit more caramelised. And then you get that nice oily bubble where the juicy fruity esters roll their way out of the beer. So for me, the fruity character is kind of what you'd expect. At the back of the front third of your palate, sort of oily sultana. As you go further forward, a big oily pear. There's a teeny little bit of like a black curranty note. And this is the one area where I'd say this beer deviates from the aroma. It has got a little bit of a more black curranty note to it than fig. I was getting fig in the aroma. It's got a soft black curranty note to it on that front part. So yeah, sultana, oily pear, and just a little bit of a kind of black curranty note in the front half of that front third of the palate. So yeah, that's a really nice take on the Vienna lager. Quite oily. If we talk about the mouthfeel, this is where it differs a little bit from the Viennese brewed ones. So mouthfeel wise, this beer is top end light bodied, carbonation's very smooth, it's got a lovely wetness to it, but this one has a bit more oily character at the same time. IBU wise, in this case we have to talk about perceived bitterness and calculated bitterness. I think the calculated bitterness of this beer on the brew sheet will be about 25 IBUs, but because of the malt base and the graininess of the malt base, the perceived bitterness might be about 35 or even 40 IBUs. So yeah, there's a bit of dryness and bitterness coming from the malt base in this, but that works for it. The malt base underneath has a little bit of dryness. The bready character in this one has a bit of density to it and also a bit of caramelisation, which is nice, a wee bit of sweetness. Then the fruity character is quite oily, and it's mainly peary and sultana-like, but yeah, there's a little bit of just oily black currant to this one, which I think suits it nicely. So for me, compared to what you'd find in Vienna, this one is a little bit sweeter, but otherwise it's pretty damn authentic. Maybe not quite as dry and grainy, but this style does have a bit of wiggle room that way. But you should always expect American interpretations of a style to be a bit sweeter than the originals. That's just kind of what I've found over the years. But yeah, that's a really solid Vienna lager. I've enjoyed this. So I think it's time. I think we've said everything we need to about this one, to be honest with you. So that was the Nano Nanette 5.4% Vienna lager. This is actually a bit stronger than many Vienna brewed Viennese lagers as well, but really nice, I have to say. I think this is a nice place to sign off. So yeah, we'll leave it there. Again, I'll do as I always do. I'll go outside, I'll give you my final thoughts, but I hope you've enjoyed this one. That's our last beer here at Source Farmhouse Brewery. Catch you guys in just a second. So yeah guys, the guys behind the bar very kindly let me into the brew house, and you can see you've got a 3-vessel system here. You've got your miller up here, then you've got your mash tun underneath, another kettle here, and then you've got your whirlpool. So yeah, a nice 3 brewing system. Behind me you can see lagering tanks. Your lagering tanks are always horizontal because it's a bit better for fermentation over longer periods. So this will be where they're brewing their Pilsners and Märzens and Vienna lagers and stuff like that. These ones here, I guess, these are maybe about 2,000-ish litres. Little, I'm not sure what this is. This is maybe a small pilot kit or something like that. Then they've got another fermentation tank and then a wee one over here for pilot batches and stuff like that. So yeah, this is a really nice little setup they've got here. But yeah, this is the window I filmed the other little thing from, just to let you see over the brewery. But very cool of them to let me through the back here. So yeah, they've got one of these little keg machines too, which is kind of cool. But yeah, that's a little look around the inside of the brewery for you. Not sure how this is going to turn out with that, but yeah, you can see there is the Source symbol on the back of the brew kit, so that's a nice little place to stop at. Alright guys, well that is the end of my time then here at Source Farmhouse Brewery. So I had a nice couple of hours here while Dave and Marielle were away doing their dance lesson. So we had 4 beers. We had the Reinheits, which was the Pilsner. We had the Source of Funk, which was like a fodder golden sour ale. Then we had the DE Dip, which was a New England double IPA. And finally we had I forget the name of the Vienna Lager, but all 4 beers were pretty damn solid. It's a bit hard to put them kind of in any order, but the Reinheits Pils for me, that needed to be a little touch drier and a little bit more kind of bitter, but it did actually grow into that German Pils type profile a little bit more, the more that you drank of it. But it was a bit wet, I would say, compared to what I would expect from a German brewed example of the style. The Source of Funk was lovely. I really enjoyed that one. Absolutely solid beer. I love my fodder sour beers. It had the lovely smoothness you'd expect from the oak underneath and just a lovely kind of bright, sharp, sour impact. The New England IPA was lovely too. Big kind of oaty, creamy leaning thing. Really enjoyed that. But then you also had a little bit of just, you know, tropical and strawberry fruit in it, so the fruity side of it was very well balanced too. The Vienna Lager, I was really impressed with the authenticity of that one. I thought it was great, but it just had that little touch more sweetness that you often find with American takes on the old world styles. But I thought that was a really great Vienna Lager, actually. Probably one of the best ones I've found outside of a Vienna brewed Vienna Lager. But in total, I spent about 20, I think it was $21 on the beers that I drank here. I also got a nice bottle that we're going to do a kind of sit-down review of later, because I think it's quite nice to do the research on the brewery and things like that too. So you'll see a review of a big quadruple, an award-winning quadruple from these guys a little bit later on as well. But yeah, that is the end of our time here then at Source Brewing in New Jersey, and it's been really nice to come here. So yeah, I hope you guys have enjoyed this one. Check out my social media, check out the brewery's social media, and we will be filming a few more videos while we're out and about here in New Jersey as well. Catch you guys on the next one. Check out my social media, check out theirs, and I hope you've enjoyed my kind of darker face with the lovely sign here. It's been a bit difficult to get the light to work in this video, but still, I hope you guys have enjoyed it. Slàinte, skål, and cheers.